What's up, fight fans? This is JD, your BVTV media, with a quick news update. All right, so we just received word that October 8th, we are about to get a major London showdown at the O2 Arena between the 147-pound Conor Benn facing off against the 160, maybe 168 Chris Eubank Jr. Now, this is a major, massive showdown over in London. Now, and partly the real main reason why this fight is major is due to the historic rivalry between Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank Sr. Now, if we dig in the archives a little bit, back in 1990, you had Chris Eubank Sr. knock out Nigel Benn.
Ben's shaking, Reg.
Right to his bootskin.
Ben is shaking. The eyes watch Reg. This will be the finish of the belt.
And it's all over in the 9th round. And would you believe in Benn's corner? They look.
And then they were able to face off again in 1993. And that fight ended up in a controversial split decision draw. So there has always been a long-lasting feud between Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank Sr. So these two, for the longest, have always been arch rivals in the sport of boxing. And so now we have where their two sons are going to carry on that legacy between the fathers and face off on a massive fight in London. And of course, in interviews with Conor Benn and interviews with Chris Eubank Jr., both of them have talked about how much this fight means for their family name and how much they really want this fight to happen and do such a great show for the London fans over across the pond. Now, the intriguing part to this fight is that Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. really aren't even in the same weight class. Like they really shouldn't even be making this fight, but you can tell this is a smart fight for both of them because the fight sells itself and it's going to massively pay both of them to fight over in the UK in the O2. And then, depending on how the fight goes, both fighters will be able to respectively go back to their division and keep climbing and fighting for the titles in their own weight class. As you know, with Conor Benn, he is kind of a fighter who has been on the uptick across the pond in the welterweight division, hadn't yet faced the top tier names of Errol Spence, Terrence Bud Crawford, or Boots Ennis, or Virgil Ortiz. But a lot of people do expect Conor Benn to get to that status at some point, especially since he is such a huge ticket draw over in London. Now, same thing with Chris Eubank Jr. He's around the 160-pound division. Also, at times, could possibly creep up to 168. He also is a major player, although he's a bit older than Conor Benn. But nevertheless, both of these young men are absolute great draws over across the pond. And in speaking to a Conor Benn, a lot of reporters have found that he really wanted to make this fight so that there was no excuses with Chris Eubank Jr. as to him fully being done with the sport and washed up. So Conor Benn has said to multiple sources that he really wanted to go ahead and make this fight while both of them were still much active in boxing and still at kind of the peak of their abilities. So it's going to be an excellent fight. Conor Benn is very adamant that he doesn't think that the weight will be that much of an issue for him. Both of them are meeting at a catchweight, though. So it is going down at 157 pounds as of right now. So as of right now, they will go ahead and meet at 157 when they get into the ring on October 8th. So it's going to be an absolutely great fight. Salute to Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. because when you are a fighter and you're growing up with a father who's a fighter and you have such pressure to live up to those expectations, I really have to credit Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. for doing their best in the sport of boxing and reaching the highest heights that they can, to the point that we have a mega bout with two sons of two legends in the sport of boxing about to go down. So that's a special thing to see in boxing, to see two sons end up being able to get to that point. But nevertheless, we'll see what happens on October 8th in the O2 Arena. And with that being said, Boxing Vibez TV signing out.